Okay guys, just picking up from my last video. I'm gonna do the while loop now. So essentially you're gonna loop through and iterate a lot of times. So for the while loop, we're gonna basically here count from 0 to 10. We're gonna say for each line the count is whatever the number is. Count is 0, count is 1. I'll read up to, oh sorry, I'll play up to 9. 0 to 9. Okay, so for this, first you need to set up a counter variable to keep track of the count. I set a count, initialize it to 0 here. The way the while loop works is it while, and we put the condition under parentheses here, and whatever you want to be executed for the loop within the braces. So basically, while this condition is true, execute the statements. Okay, that's the way the while works, and it keeps checking this condition until it's false, whereupon it finishes. It exits the loop. So count is 0, while 0 less than 10, that's true. Execute the statements. First say count is whatever count is. Count is 0, so count is 0. And we increment the value of count. We say we assign count plus 1, which is in this case 0 plus 1, and that's 1. We assign that to count, so now count holds the value 1. This line is very important, otherwise you will get an infinite loop. So don't forget this line. If you get an infinite loop, it will never stop, and if you try to run your script in the browser, it's gonna, like, the computer's gonna be doing that loop forever, and it's gonna be just bad. Don't forget this line. You have to increment count, so eventually the loop condition will be false and you exit the loop. Okay, so after incrementing count, count is now 1. You go and check the condition again. Count, which is equal to 1. Is that less than 10? True. Execute the statements again. Count is equal to 1. And then you increment count, so count is 1, increment count, count is 2, check the condition. 2 less than 10, true, count is true, increment count now is 3, and so on, all the way. Let's jump to do all of this. Now count is 8, 8 plus 1, 9, count is assigned 9. 9 less than 10, true, execute the statements. Count is 9, increment count, count is 9 plus 1, which is 10. Now check the condition again. Is 10 less than 10? That's false. So finally we exit the while loop and proceed to whatever we have after that. Okay, so that's the way the while loop works. Now you could change this. Say you put count equals 4, what would we get? First we would start at 4, so 4 less than 10, true, count is 4, and it's good the same thing all the way up to 9. See, starts from 4. Let's go back to 0. Now if you put a less than or equal here, what would happen? Well, when it reached 9, 9 plus 1, 10, 10 less than or equal to 10, that's true, so it would still execute one more time, so we would say count is 10, and increment 10, that's 11, less than or equal to 10, false, and finally we exit, so we would get 0 through 10. You see? Alright, now let's proceed to the do while loop. That's very similar to the while, except the do while loop always executes at least once. Whatever is inside the do while loop gets executed at least once. The way it works is it comes to the do here. The first time it just executes whatever is within the braces, and then after that, after the first execution, it checks the condition. to determine whether it's going back to the loop and executes the statement again, or it's gonna exit. So let's say count is 12. If we had a normal while loop and you check the condition like this one, we would get false and the loop would never be executed. But since it's a do while loop, the way it works is first it does whatever is here first before checking the condition. So count is 12, do this. Value of count is 12. New line, increment count to 13. Check the condition. Count, which is 13 less than 10, that's false. So we stop the loop and go on to whatever we're doing after that. So let's check that file. See, count is 12 and nothing else. So do while loop gets the statements within the do while loop always get executed at least once. Let's say count is 0. So what would we get? So do this, so count is 0. And 0 plus 1 is 1, 1. Check the condition, 1 less than 10, true. Go to the condition, to the statements again, and does it. Count is 1. Display count is 1, then add 1. We got 2, 2 less than 10. True, go there. Count is 2. 2 plus 1, 3. Count 3 less than 10, true, and so on, all the way up to when count is 9 here, it's going to be true. Count is 9, it's going to be displayed. Then we'll increment to 10, 10 less than 10, false, and then it stops. Let's check that. The same thing we did before with the while loop. So let's try something like change this condition here. While count is greater than 10, what would you expect to happen? So count is 0. Do while, do whatever this is first. Echo count is 0. Increment count, now count is 1. Is 1 greater than 0? That's false. So we just stop the loop and proceed to whatever you have. So you would just say count is 0. So that's all for the do while loop. Alright. Now I'd like to talk about the for loop. Just the way it works with other languages, just iterating. It's very similar to the while loop. In a way, we want to iterate a couple number of times here. This one is just a for loop with a counter. We're gonna count from 0 to 9. Let's just focus on this part right now. So for the for loop in PHP, it's very similar to C and C++. So you say for, and under parentheses you have 3 sections. Like you have first to initialize the counter. My counter variable is called I. That's kind of like a standard name for a counter variable. And then I initialize that to 0. And now I have the condition. That's the condition the loop is going to check to determine whether it's going to continue or exit the loop. And then you have the increment part, and that's to increment the counter. Okay, so the way the for loops works is first you initialize the counter, set I equals 0. Okay, and then you go on, check the condition, 0 less than 10, true, execute the statements if it's true. Count is whatever I is, now it's 0. It's going to say count equals 0 is 0. Then after that, all those statements are executed, it goes and increments the counter. So I gets incremented to 1. After that, it checks the condition again. Is 1 less than 10? If that is true, it executes all the statements again. Count is 1, is displayed. Increment the variable, now I is 2. Check the condition, 2 less than 10, true. Execute statements, and you keep going all the way. Let's say now I is 9, You say count is 9, you increment I, now I is 10. Now check the condition I, 10 less than 10, that's false. So when you get the false there, that means it's going to exit the loop. So it just exits and proceeds to whatever is after the loop. So it's going to count from 0 to 9. Let's just check it here in the browser. Here's my file here. As you can see, it counts 0, 1, and so on all the way up to 9. Now let's count backwards from 9 to 0. And for that, I set my initializer to 9. That's where I'm going to start. My condition is going to do the loop as long as I is greater than or equal to 0. So even if I is 0, I'm going to do whatever is within the for loop statement, the braces. And for the, instead of incrementing the variable, I'm going to decrement. So put 2 minus signs there to decrease the value of I by 1. So let's try this out. First, you enter this for loop, set the initializer I equals 9, check the condition 9 greater than or equal to 0, that's true. Execute the statements, count is 9. All the statements are finished, increment or decrement the variable, decrement I, now I is 8. Check the condition 8 greater than or equal to 0, true, execute statements, and so on and so on. Let's say I is now 1, so I is 1. You finish all the statements, decrement, now 1, minus 1 is 0. 0 is greater than or equal to 0, that's true, executes the statements again, you say count is 0, increment I, decrement I, that's 0 minus 1, that's negative 1. Negative 1 greater than or equal to 0, that's false. So this for loop is terminated and you proceed to whatever you have next. And that's basically it. If you do it here, it's this section here, it counts. Count is 9, 8, all the way up to 0. Alright, so that's basically it for the for loop, like the standard way, the old-fashioned way. For the next video, we'll be talking about for each loop and other stuff. Okay, so thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you liked all the videos. Thanks.